Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another episode. Coming live from Film Fanatic headquarters. It is Wednesday, December 10th, 10:27. I can't believe it's already Wednesday. So, I hope everyone's doing good. Yeah, I guess I usually like to always mention any kind of music things coming up or possibilities. But I got some potential. I got a couple of things I'm working on that haven't solidified yet, but I think they might happen. I think they might come together. But as far as quantum, usually wintertime is the slow time of the year in general for gigs. But trying to keep some things going. On the 19th of December, really excited to have a show with Quantum and Travis Lloyd at Hey Sailor. That's going to be. I'm really really excited to be sharing the stage with Travis Lloyd. He's a local talent, so amazing. He just dropped a new album, Ferns, about a month ago. Pretty phenomenal, pretty phenomenal talent. So we're going to be doing a show together at Hey Sailor on the 19th of this month, coming up pretty soon, and it's going to be a 7 o'clock show. So come on by if you're around. I've been doing a lot of promotion for it, and in the next week or two, there'll be even more. And then I have another show that's going to be. Still have to get some more info and some more details, but I think Quantum's going to be doing a showcase, like right around, pretty close to Christmas, and I think it's going to be in the Rockland area. Still finalizing the details, and once I get all that stuff, I will get that going as far as promotion stuff goes. And then we might do another show in January. So, yeah, I got a few things. But anyway, I wanted to do a special show on One Battle After Another. I did a big review for this film when I saw it. It came out in September. I think I saw it. Yeah, I saw it in September. I was totally blown away by this film, and I wanted to do. I did a review of One Battle After Another, of course. I mean, I always do that when I go to a movie. Speaking of which, I just uploaded my whole experience on going to see Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill, The Whole Bloody Affair. What an amazing experience that was. So awesome. So worth it. I just uploaded a video on it's up now on the channel about the whole experience and the whole things that I thought were pretty different with this cut, which there definitely was. And it just kind of brought home for me that feeling, or really the reason why I go to the movies. So check that out if you get a chance. And I also put up a video where I'm actually putting it up. I think it will be up today. But I did a little video, actually was kind of a lengthy video. But I talked about kind of the big news, the big headline news with Netflix, basically acquiring, the entire media world. It's still not set. There is Paramount might has proposed this whole hostile takeover. I'm not sure exactly the legalities of where things are standing now, but either way, this whole takeover is a massive shift in the film industry. So I did a video on that and my concerns, and just the concerns I think of people who love films, who cherish the experience of going to the movies. So, and how that relates to, I mean everything. I mean from production of films, I mean distribution, I mean it affects everything, physical media. So I did a video on that, on this pretty big topic, pretty big subject. It's also a very, on the technical side of things, the the legal aspect of it. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't speak from that kind of perspective, but I'm just, I just decided to make a video on my first thoughts, my concerns, weighing out the general scenario of this happening. So that might be up. It's a longer video. There was a lot to talk about, obviously, but it might be up today. So, check that out. And it's a it's a huge thing. I think it's going to really affect the film going experience, and I think it's going to just affect movies in general. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But today's show is kind of a part two for where I want to talk about one battle after another. Because I just watched a new interview with Leonardo DiCaprio and Paul Anderson that really piqued my curiosity, and I realized, okay, there's a lot more things have happened around this film just within the last few days, which I think is totally awesome. I really feel like this movie is finally getting what it deserves, as far as nominations for what it's worth. I don't have a lot of faith in award ceremonies, but I think when something is a really great piece of art, it's always encouraging and awesome when something gets the rightful acclaim, and something that is, when especially this movie and just Paul Thomas Anderson films in general and him as a director, he doesn't make movies that are really made for, mass consumption. They're not. It's not an IP. It's not a franchise. It's not a superhero related film. So he makes really interesting, kind of weird art house films, and he takes a lot of chances, takes a lot of risks, and he has such a really an incredible body of work, and I think he's one of the most kind of important modern day American directors. I really think he has such a unique style and vision. So I want to do, and again, like I said in the top of the show, the beginning of the show, I did do a review of this movie, one battle after another, after my experience of seeing it in the theater, and I wanted to do a like kind of a part two of about this movie, because I all of the kind of the things that have happened around it, really positive, I will say, that have been really great, and I think encouraging, and it's a movie that I've been kind of championing it, and I've been wanting, and I've been rooting for it, because I think it's that good. I do think, out of this season of 2025, I think overall, as far as new releases and the actual film going experience, it I think for me it's the best movie I've seen this year. There's been some good movies, and I think one battle after another had is just ahead of the pack, and it's head and shoulders above everything that I've seen. And it's had such an interesting trajectory since it's come out. It's been out for a few months. It came out late September. It's just about been out theatrically for about maybe 2 months or so. I think it still is. I'm not sure. I think it's still in the theaters, but like it's getting towards the end of its run theatrically. But it might not be. I do think it's also when I was at Opera House Video, the only video store in existence in the state of Maine. I do believe that I saw that it's available for rental. I do think I saw it. This is definitely a movie. I've only seen it the one time, but it's definitely a movie that I really, really want to see, or I should say, I really, really want to get on Blu-ray. I don't own any Paul Thomas Anderson films on Blu-ray. I don't know. I don't think I do, which is really unfortunate, because obviously with all of his films, and especially this one, he is such a great visual storyteller as well. And this movie has such a visual spectacle to it, so I definitely want to get this on Blu-ray because I think it will be amazing. I think it will be pretty mind-blowing, honestly. I've only seen it the one time, and I did do a show, a review for it, and then I think I did another show on. This is, I believe, my third show on this film, but I think it's so worth talking about because whenever I do shows on movies that I really really love or that I just think are just important, I try to, and that's up to you find folks who check out my wacky videos to decide. But I try to, if I'm covering a movie and I'm doing multiple shows on a movie, I try to cover it from different angles. I've been like, for instance, I've been doing reviews on. Well, I did a review recently, and I've had multiple shows, and I still have more shows coming. But one of my favorite, pretty much my favorite zombie horror exploitation movie, Burial Ground. I've I did a show on my review after buying it on Blu-ray like last year, and then I've been doing shows around it as far as like, because there's so many things about that movie I love. About I really love the director. I love the soundtrack, film score, practical effects. So I've been doing these specialty shows where I've been doing those things as the focus. So I try to do something different instead of just like, I don't want to do the same review, the same kind of video. And so I did with one battle after another. I did a review where I just did a more or less standard review or talk on just on how I was just kind of blown away by this movie. I think one battle after another is like, it's like a holding a stick of dynamite. It's the only way I can describe it. So I did that kind of video, but then I also did a video on kind of the box office turmoil that movie was up against. So and then today's video is on kind of where the movie is at right now, as far as where it's the money it's made, the press around it, and all of these award nominations that it's been getting. And again, it's leading up to. There's been buzz. I mean, there has been buzz around this movie ever since it came out that this film will probably get multiple Oscars, multiple Academy Awards. And again, I'm not. I kind of gave up on watching. I used to, years ago, I used to watch every year. I used to watch the Academy Awards. I was a super nerd when it came to that aspect of films. I used to have a subscription to Entertainment Weekly. I used to watch the Golden Globes every year, and I would watch the Academy Awards every year. But I just got really tired of it, and ultimately, it just made me feel depressed. Occasionally, there's a glitch in a matrix, and something gets really, something that is really good gets the accolades or the prize that you know uh, that it deserves. But generally, I've given up on this whole kind of show or spectacle. But that being said, I still think I love to see a movie that I think is just tremendous get the praise that it deserves, and I feel like that's what's happening with one battle after another. So I wanted to do a show where I talked about the cast, the extraordinary cast, the extraordinary direction of Paul Thomas Anderson, kind of the trajectory of this movie because it's been kind of interesting since it's been out for a few months, where it's at now, some of the awards it's been up for, and kind of where it's going, and this almost this, I don't know, to a degree like a second life that it's taken on. So when this movie came out, you know, I remember seeing that in the box office, this was as far as all of the films that Paul Thomas Anderson has directed, this by far was the most successful commercially. He made the most money out of all of his movies, and he's been, he's directed some incredible films. I mean, The Master, There Will Be Blood. I mean, Boogie Nights. Um, just so many incredible movies. Phantom Thread, Punch Drunk Love. The only movie of his that I could not get through, and I do want to give it another chance, but the only movie of his career that I generally didn't really like is Licorice Pizza, which came out a few years ago. I didn't really like that movie with Joaquin Phoenix. I don't know what happened with that movie. It was really boring and really slow to the point of where I ended up not making all the way through. I do kind of want to revisit it. It's a very different film for Paul Thomas Anderson, but all of his films are. All of his films are very unique. They really have this. He has a very unique style. He definitely has this kind of maverick art house going for the jugular thing. He doesn't really. I do not feel like he is concerned at all about making a movie that is, for mass appeal. I think, when you look at movies that he's made, I mean, they're all pushing the boundaries. He definitely pushes the boundaries on what art films can be, and I think he when he assembles his cast, whoever he's working with, he gets the best out of them. I mean, one of the best examples I think is, you know, There Will Be Blood with Daniel Day Lewis. I mean, that is arguably, and I've seen a lot of people say it, and I kind of feel like it, it's definitely up there. But there's been a lot of people who have said that, like what he did with his collaboration with Daniel Day Lewis, that was probably, the best performance of Daniel Day Lewis's amazing career, and one of the greatest performances ever in a film. I mean, just in general. So, and I think when you look at his films and who he's worked with, in this movie, I think it is the case with DiCaprio and this incredible cast I'm going to talk about, and Benicio del Toro. I think he did the same thing with Adam Sandler for Punch Drunk Love. I mean, he just completely reinvented himself as an actor. So there's a lot of examples with him really taking his actors and pushing them and giving some of their best performances ever in their career, if not their best. And the main thing is with One Battle After Another is this cast that Paul Thomas Anderson was able to pull together, which is just an incredibly stacked cast, and just talk about chemistry and talk about just across the board incredible performances. Of course, Leonardo DiCaprio, the iconic Sean Penn, some newcomers to films that some of these actors, actresses I have never seen before. Tanya Taylor, Chase Infinity, another iconic actor, one of my favorite actors, along with Leonardo DiCaprio. Benicio del Toro, amazing. Regina Hall, Elena Ham, and Wood Harris. An absolutely incredible ensemble cast. So the thing that happened with this movie, I remember when it came out, and I remember I saw it in the theater, and I saw that there was I saw the news that this film, for out of all of the films that Paul Thomas Anderson has directed, this had made a lot of money. This was the biggest, this had made the most money out of all of his films, and he's been making films for he's been around for a long time now. So that was, I thought, very very cool, because this movie is not like all of his films. I mean, it gets pretty crazy. It gets a little bonkers. It is not commercial in its nature. It's it's a thriller. It's got so many the strength of this movie, and I think that it happens. It's a quality of why I love his film so much. Probably my favorite film of his, or I mean, because I love this movie so much, but I really think the movie that really does it for me. I mean, I think Boogie Nights, for instance, that movie is a complete and utter masterpiece. That's a movie I need to revisit again, but that movie is just unbelievable. But the movie that really did it for me was There Will Be Blood. That movie just blew my fucking mind. I got to see that in the theater when it came out. I've seen that movie so many times. I definitely need an upgrade for that movie. That movie just blew me the fuck away when I first saw it, and it continues. I've seen it. I watched it last year again. I only have it on DVD, but I need to get an upgrade. But anyway, the thing about his films, and I think especially with Battle After Another, is how he combined so many different styles or genres of films, genres or styles of film in this one movie. I mean, you have like this. Well, one of the things that stands out is just how funny this movie is. It's got well, I mean, honestly, really, with most of Paul Thomas Anderson's films, they get pretty wacky, they get pretty nuts, they get pretty gonzo. They go into some pretty dark territory. But this film has does that. It's a very dark film, but it's got such a comedic thing to it. It kind of plays out in some regards as like a black comedy. A lot of his other films are a little bit more on the they're a little bit more stark, more serious, contemplative. You know, this film definitely had the thing that I love about this movie is that it has a lot of levity. There's it deals with very heavy subjects. It's a very heavy drama driven or melodrama even, but it also has levity to it, and there's a lot of humor to it. And this movie has a real interesting thing because it's got a levity to it, and again, it deals with well issues and things that we're dealing with now in our society. But it's got a really great, super sharp sense of humor to it, where it gives you some breathing room. It's not so heavy to where it's like overwhelming or that you need a break. I love films that can deal with very heavy subjects, but can have a little bit of levity to it, and maybe not take everything so serious, because I think that is a thing that happens in a lot of newer movies now that kind of drives me nuts after a while, where everything has to be so dark and so stark and just bleak and miserable, and and I again, I love films. I'm drawn to films that deal with a lot of dark subjects, and that's kind of my natural inclination. But I love when things are like you can have some levity to it, and there's some comedy, or there's to lighten things, to lighten the mood up. Because I honestly think when a film has that, and I think this movie does that in spades, when you have that break, I guess, from the weighty ramifications of what you're seeing, it seeps in more. I think it's easier to digest and to understand and to kind of let it resonate with you, because it gives you a break. It literally gives you a psychological break or an emotional break, and that's really powerful. And that's really on one hand, I think it's really complex, and it's just all out, super challenging, and it's just hard to do. And so this movie has like, I think one aspect you could look at this movie as being a black comedy. You can, I think this movie has a big time kind of thriller aspect. It's got such incredible suspense throughout the entire film, and it has this level of intensity where it's able to sustain the entire runtime, which is unbelievable. I think this movie also has um, where it feels like it was greatly influenced by like the classic western. Like I see an influence from like John Ford movies. Like I feel like this movie has very much a western vibe, and there's a lot of scenes, a lot of shots, the way a lot of things are set up that it very much makes me feel like, wow, that I remember watching this, and I remember when I saw this movie, I was like, wow, okay, I bet these guys, I bet the cast and Paul Thomas Anderson, they probably rewatched, The Searchers or, a few John Wayne films because I was like, this is like, this really has that kind of vibe or aesthetic. And I also feel like this movie is a balls to the wall action movie. I really do. I think it's got such an incredible action. There's so many great action sequences. I think it also has one of the greatest car chase scenes I've seen in recent history. I remember seeing an interview with DiCaprio and Benicio del Toro, and they were talking about how this film had, and this was obviously before I saw this film. They were talking about how they felt the work was inspired by so many different things, so many different styles, and they were talking about movies like the Duel, which was the first movie directed by Steven Spielberg, which is such an incredible movie. One of the greatest chase scene driven movies. It's also a horror movie. Amazing film. Benicio del Toro was saying that that movie had a huge impact and was really influential. When I saw that interview, I was like, okay, I have to see that. Like, it's a comedy, but then it was influenced by movies like this. And then he also talked about The Vanishing being a huge influence, which I think is the greatest car chase scene driven movie in history. Amazing, and I'm like, wow, I'm sold. And I was like, okay, I got to see it. So It's a movie that took on and blended all of these styles all in one movie. I was just like, that's wild, and I really do. After seeing it, that's what it's like. This movie is literally a roller coaster ride, and it strikes such a great balance because it definitely has its very grounded kind of stance on social political things that we're going through, but it's also incredibly funny, and it's got just exhilarating action and suspense, and it's a thrill ride. And I love that it was able to kind of deal with and tackle like very heavy kind of modern day contemporary subjects, but yet it's entertaining as all fuck. It's never too heavy. It's never like I guess depressing in regards to what it's dealing with. And so when this movie came out again, like it made the most money out of all of his films, all of Paul Thomas Anderson films, which was great. And I was like, that's awesome because this movie is killer. Is the and I still think there's been some really good movies this year, but I still think that this movie all around overall is the best movie of 2025 that I've seen in the theater. And getting a chance to see it in the theater, it was exhilarating, and I was super excited to because it's meant to be seen on the screen. Getting back to the theatrical experience, and then it was weird because, the box office has been a lot of movies. There's been some good movies this year, but the last couple of years, movies have been getting their asses kicked in the box office. As far as like, there's been so many movies that have been flopping. There's been so many movies, especially with established IP movies, franchises, all Marvel movies, comic book movies, all of these things. So many movies have been dying like this horrible death in the box office. And then occasionally you have certain films that come along and do really, really well. And there has been some movies this year that have done very, very well for the box office. But compared to, say, what it was like 15, 20 years ago, it's not even close. And so what ended up happening was like there was, this when one battle after another, it was pretty much right out of the gate. It was praised by the critics. And people who got a chance to see it early, who are also critics, really praised this movie. It got really hyped up, and rightfully so, because everything that critics and folks who got to see early screeners of this movie were saying about it, I have to say, it was totally spot on. So, and in the state, the state of where the box offices were, it's been kind of this crazy like graveyard of just movies dying left and right. On one hand, this movie made a lot of money. It was the biggest of his career, Paul Thomas Anderson's career. But immediately after, I saw that people were saying, critics and a lot of people on YouTube and people who are kind of in the industry were saying that this movie was a flop and was kind of dead in the water. And I didn't understand what that was about because the movie had just come out. It got all this acclaim right before I got to see it, and I was blown away by it. And I saw it was the biggest movie of Paul Thomas Anderson's career. And within a couple of days, even, I remember, you know, industry people were saying that this movie was not considered a success and that it was a flop. And it got all of this attention around that for like weeks. All this negative attention that this movie was just yet again another Hollywood movie that has just died in the box office to just add to the pile of shit that has died and deceased. And it was getting all of this negative press around it, and I was just like, why is that happening? And there was like this weird thing of where I felt like a lot of these industry people, the people who run the stats on films that come out, and I saw it across the board on YouTube, left and right, with people that I saw that I like, and I was kind of like disappointed as to why they're buying into this whole narrative. But they were just basically saying that like this movie doesn't have any kind of long-standing power commercially. They were saying that like Leonardo DiCaprio's star power is gone. He hasn't had a successful movie in years. They were just everything was negative about the money this movie was making. And they were putting Paul Thomas Anderson in this weird light, looking to him being like kind of this new hope or savior to the box office, that he was going to make all, or like just rank it in financially with this movie and kind of bring back the box office and bring people to the theater. And I was just like, that is so unfair and so ridiculous. And I felt there was this mounting pressure from the industry as to why that should be a thing, and why they feel that this movie did not make any money and is considered a flop. And I was just baffled by that because I'm like, here you have so many industry people, box office people who follow these stats, YouTube, film reviewers, all this shit, all these media outlets. I felt like they were putting all this pressure on Paul Thomas Anderson to be this guy who suddenly is going to be making these movies for mass consumption, and he's going to be like this, he's Paul Thomas Anderson equals box office gold. And I'm like, what are these people like fucking talking about? Because if you look at any of the films, you look at his career and just the way he is as an artist, he is not concerned at all about making, commercial films for, you're not going to, people are not going to take, they never have and they never will, people are not going to like take their families, their wives or their spouses or their girlfriends and their kids to go see a Paul Thomas Anderson film. It's not that kind of film. I mean, he essentially makes these American art house films that kind of challenge you and that are on the deal with darker subjects, and they get a little bit crazy, they get a little bit bonkers, but he doesn't make films with that kind of idea in his head, and I just didn't get it. And why he was like, well, suddenly they're assuming that he's going to make a film that like Spielberg is going to make, and like, why are they putting him in this light of that he's going to be this huge box office draw when he typically makes these kind of weird art house films? It was weird, and so that went on for a while, and then I saw that it kind of fell, it started to drift away, and then now we're leading, we're in December now, and now the Golden Globes are happening, and then after that, there's before the Golden Globes, there's all these other smaller award companies or award ceremonies, and all these other groups start nominating films of 2025, and then that leads to the bigger show with the Golden Globes, and then of course that leads to the Academy Awards, the big show. And again, I don't have any faith in these shows, but I do love when a movie that I think deserves it gets it, because that should happen. I think it should happen. And so I noticed within the last month or so, all these smaller like award shows or that were popping up, these smaller companies that were nominating films, that basically nominate films, which leads to the Golden Globes. I saw that One Battle After Another was getting nominated for all of these awards all of a sudden. And I saw this kind of second or third wave of interest in this movie. And then I started seeing that this movie is now like staying, they extended the theatrical run for this film, and it just got this second or third wave of, it was getting nominated by all of these awards companies and award ceremonies, these like smaller groups, and then it led up into just like a week or two ago where it got nominated for virtually every category for the Golden Globes, and it's gotten so much acclaim, more so now I think than when it came out, which I think is awesome and amazing. And again, I don't have any faith in those kinds of systems really anymore, but again, I still embrace that when a really great film comes along, and when a really great filmmaker makes an amazing film like this. So I think it's awesome, and it's gotten all these awards. It set a record, I think, for nominations for Golden Globes as far as virtually every category. It's been best actor, best editor, best editing. Every conceivable award in the Golden Globes category, it's gotten nominated for, I believe. And usually, a lot of the times when a movie gets all of those awards or gets nominated heavily in the Golden Globes, that's a good indication that that film is probably going to get the same kind of treatment for the big show, the Academy Awards. So it's on that path. I think that it's probably going to strike some serious gold as far as taking home multiple Academy Awards. But along with all of the awards and nominations that this film has gotten, it's gotten this whole second life. And this movie has stayed even longer in its theatrical run, has made even more money, and I just think it's awesome. And I think this movie totally deserves that. After kind of getting beaten up for a while by the industry, which was so ridiculous, because I kind of got sick of hearing, so much around, oh, this movie's a bomb, and Leonardo DiCaprio's like this washed up actor, and you know all this stuff, and the industry's dead, and all this shit, and nothing can save the industry. And that was kind of became the narrative that overshadowed people saying, no, you should just see this movie because it's probably the best movie of 2025. And that was really frustrating to see, and to see now that it has made a shit ton of money. It's made even more money, and it's gotten it's all these insane across the board nominations. I do believe this film has actually set a record for the most nominations for a Golden Globe. So I think it's awesome. I think it's great, and if you get a chance, I think it might be in still some select theaters. I only got a chance to see this once, but I do want to see it. I obviously want to get it again. I want to get definitely buy it on Blu-ray. So if you get a chance, definitely see this movie. I still think, as far as there has been some very good movies this year, but as far as what I've seen, the movie I think about the most and the movie that I want to see the most again, I think One Battle After Another is still the best movie of 2025. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.